start with some opening remarks. Thank you for joining us for the Aurora Chamber federal election event. My name is Sandra Ferri, for those of you who don't know me, and I'm the president and CEO of the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. I'll be moderating the event tonight with the help of Sean Marie and Sandra Watson, who will be the timekeepers, ensuring every candidate keeps to the time given to answer questions. I would like to thank our event sponsors this evening, the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, for their support for the Chamber in this event. It's important to note that the Aurora Chamber of Commerce invited all registered candidates, and we want to introduce the following candidates participating in tonight's event. From the Newmarket Aurora riding, Tony Van Bynen, Liberal candidate and incumbent; Yvonne Kelly, NDP candidate; Tim Flemming, Green Party candidate; Dorian Baxter, an independent. From the Aurora Oak Ridges Richmond Hill riding, we have Leah Taylor-Roy, Liberal candidate; Janice Hagan, NDP candidate; Anthony Siskos, PPC candidate; and Serge Korovitsyn, Libertarian candidate. Both conservative candidates for Aurora declined our invitation to participate in the event tonight. The following are strict format and guidelines. Each candidate will receive up to 2 minutes max to present their opening remarks and will be muted if they exceed 2 minutes. Following that, they will be asked a series of questions. Each candidate will have a strict 90-second limit to respond. Once they hit 90 seconds, they will hear Sean or Sandra call time, at which point they will have 5 seconds to wrap. Following that, they will be muted. Once the questions are complete, each candidate will be given a strict 1-minute closing remarks. Please note that these rules will be strictly adhered to so that it allows for more information and content to be shared. We will not be taking questions from the floor. Responses must strictly focus on the questions asked. As the Aurora Chamber of Commerce prides ourselves on being an inclusive, respectful, and open organization, we implore all candidates to extend that respect to everyone participating in the event tonight. Let's begin with opening remarks, which we will group by party. From the Liberal Party, Tony, would you like to begin?
Well, thank you, Sandra. Firstly, I want to thank the Chamber for the invitation to participate in this discussion. And I've always appreciated the way that you work together with your members and all levels of government and provided invaluable advice throughout this pandemic. I've enjoyed the many meetings that we've had to find solutions. Newmarket and Aurora are as connected as any two towns in the country. Our kids go to school and play soccer together. Our local economies depend on each other, and our businesses employ our neighbors from both sides of the St. John Side Road. When we made decisions during my time as the mayor of Newmarket, we knew they'd impact our friends in Aurora, and we were partners in a lot of great initiatives. And as your member of parliament over the past 2 years, I've worked as closely with Mayor Maracas, with the Chamber, and with the business community in Aurora as I have with the ones in Newmarket. Elections are about choices, choices about who you want to represent you and about exactly what you want those people to do. As we come through this pandemic, we're going to need experienced leadership, an MP who can work with everyone to help support our community through the recovery. It's the kind of leadership I've tried to show in the last 2 decades as I've served our communities. And it's the kind of leadership I've tried to bring to supporting our local businesses in this pandemic. In this election, we can choose to keep supporting businesses that make our country what it is. We can keep moving forward, preparing our local economy for a world that's changing by the day. That's what I stand for, and that's what I want to continue to work towards as your member of parliament. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Leah, would you go next, please?
Sure. Thank you, Sandra. Good afternoon. Bienvenue et merci aux Chambres de Commerce d'Aurora. As a member, I've seen firsthand how vibrant our chamber is here in Aurora. Thanks to the board and staff for the leadership and support during this difficult time. This election is about our future and the kind of Canada we want. Frankly, this is the most important election that our country has ever faced. And in our riding of Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill, every voter concerned about our future needs to vote Liberal. The Liberal Party has clear positions and has taken hard decisions on the urgent issues facing us: vaccinations, gun control, and most importantly, climate action. We, like all countries worldwide, know vaccines are the best way to end this pandemic. Liberals will continue to require vaccinations and support vaccine passports. The Conservatives haven't even required their candidates to be vaccinated. On gun control, the Liberal Party banned semi-automatic weapons. The Conservatives now say we have to review this and see which ones should not be banned. The answer is clear. Absolutely none of them. Finally, and most importantly, we need urgent action on the climate crisis. The Globe and Mail has clearly concluded that the Conservative plan is too weak. The Liberal Party is moving forward with strong, clear action. If you're like me and believe that action is needed to end the pandemic, to ban firearms, and to fight climate change, I urge you to vote Liberal. Please put your concern for the climate first. It cannot withstand a Conservative minority for even a year. In this riding, a vote for the NDP helps the Conservatives to win, and our environment will suffer. My name is Leah Taylor-Roy, and I stand for strong local representation and clear, decisive action to move forward. Vote Liberal because we can't afford to go backwards. Thanks.
Thank you, Leah. We'll move on to the NDP party. Yvonne, the floor is yours.
To thank the Aurora Chamber for this opportunity to speak to you today about the New Democrats' vision for a just recovery and an inclusive economy for all of us. I want to start by acknowledging that the riding of Newmarket Aurora is located on the traditional territories of the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Anishinaabe peoples, and the treaty land of the Williams Treaty First Nation. This past few months has revealed the atrocities that were enacted upon our Indigenous peoples in Canada. It's important for us to acknowledge this, but even more important for our actions to take hold and to achieve truth and reconciliation that is meaningful and reparative. My challenge to all of us today is to embrace a bold vision of what Canada can be. It is human nature to focus only on what is right in front of us and to limit solutions to what we know and what benefits us. COVID has shown us that we no longer have the luxury of short-sighted and self-interested thinking if we want to have a future for the next generation. Investments in communities, our care economy, our healthcare are more important than ever as a world of imminent climate and pandemic emergencies are coming for us. That might sound dark, but it'll be even darker if we don't safeguard the future, and in particular, the most vulnerable. It is how we create strong economies, realize people's potential, and work together to build a society that is economically and socially fair and just. How do we do this? First, we don't repeat the same failed policies that got us here, where half Canadians don't have any savings and are losing their homes. Low-income seniors and families without prescription drug coverage can't afford to safeguard their health. Students are saddled with crippling death. And the one thing that 99% of us take for granted each and every day, clean drinking water, continues to be denied to our Indigenous people. How long will we settle for this? The NDP has a plan to lift us all up. It recognizes the urgency of the times and is consistent with our values of social, economic, racial, gender, and environmental justice. I look forward to sharing these ideas with you throughout the debate today. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Janice, would you go next, please?
Yes, hi, I'm Janice Hagan. I am the NDP candidate in Aurora, Oak Ridges, and Richmond Hill, and happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. And thank you to everybody who's taking the time out of your afternoon to come and give us a chance. I know we can't have the big in-person debates filling rooms, and so I really thank you for coming out and getting to know the candidates, because this is you know, a very important part of democracy. I am a very democratic person. I value democracy. I believe that when you're elected, your job is to facilitate democracy, not to make people's decisions for them. And that's going to be the way I lead in my union, and it would definitely be the way I would lead as an MP. I think it's really important as we come out of, hopefully come out of this COVID crisis, that we learn from it. And the one thing is, I think that the COVID crisis is like a microcosm of what is going to have to happen when we move towards dealing with climate change, dealing with the destruction of our natural resources, our oceans, moving away from a carbon-based economy into you know, a much cleaner and locally based energy sources. The NDP is ready to start that work. We can't wait another 4 or 8 years, another few elections. We have to start that right now. We want strong limits on emissions in the next 10 years, and we are going to invest heavily in green jobs to try and change the way people are working. You can't just bring in limits and controls. You have to look at the people who are working in vulnerable environmental jobs and make sure that we are transitioning them into a greener economy. And that's why I think that the NDP has the best platform going ahead for the critical work in the next 10 years. Thank you.
Janice, we'll move on to the Green Party. Tim, the floor is yours.
Hi, thanks for coming, everyone today, and all Newmarket, Aurora, Richmond Hill. I'm the one and only Green candidate running in both ridings, and I'm uniquely qualified because I did run in the South last time, and I've lived in the three areas pretty well all my life and worked in the areas. So I know the challenges that we uniquely face. I have worked for most political stripes, sorry, not my PPC partner there, but for the other political stripes. And I have come to the conclusion that really the same old ain't gonna cut it. I know we need to make very pragmatic changes that both affect employer, employee, and quite honestly, our whole infrastructure in Canada. I mean, the reality is that we have a unique position as Canadians and York region to actually be leaders in items like renewable energy, certainly create the right job creation in that space, to really develop an environment to continue to live and treat people with respect, and also without question to really have a much more fair, just society. So the Green Party is really practically the only party that has a platform to move us in the positive direction for both employers and employees, and we as Canadians overall. And I welcome and engage the conversation of same. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Moving on to the PPC Party. Anthony, would you go next, please?
Sorry, just unmuting there. Hi, everyone. I'm Anthony Siskos, and I am the PPC candidate for the Aurora, Oak Ridges, and Richmond Hill riding. I was born and raised in Toronto, Canada, moved to Caledon when I was very young, and went to school for economics at the University of Western Ontario. I have never been in politics. I've had a vibrant career in the private and kind of in the public sector as well, working alongside Infrastructure Ontario while working at Ellis Dawn for 5 to 7 years. They're building and constructing what is beautiful projects on what we now know as Toronto Skyline. From there, I left Ellis Dawn to pursue my career in media, which is now something that I did was my best decision. So I'm not political at all. I got into this race because I am frankly fed up. I'm frankly fed up with everyone on the call as well. I'm coming to you with a different vision, a less political vision, a less government intervention vision for Canada. Government is in our business day in, day out. And as the Aurora Chamber of Commerce here, we don't need more government intervention. This has been the most government oversight and intervention that we've ever seen in our lifetimes. From what we've just heard, the Liberal Party is now coercing and mandating more and more what doesn't work, from lockdowns to more vaccine mandates to, sorry, I'm getting a little heated because what we've heard from every candidate, except for myself, is this dystopian vision of Canada. Dystopian. And frankly, I love Canada. Canada is a beautiful home. Canada is somewhere I grew up and I want to see the best for, and that's why I'm here.
Thank you. Just give me a second. We'll move on to the Libertarian Party. Serge, the floor is yours.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is I see better with that. My name is Serge Korovitsyn, and I live in Oak Ridges, and I'm a Libertarian candidate. I came from Soviet Union here like 30 years ago, and the reason I'm running, so to educate people so that the path the Canada is on right now.
Oh,
Froze up.
oh. All right, we'll maybe come back to that. Let me just go back here. So lastly, it's Dorian, you're the independent candidate. Do you want to go next while we're waiting to see if Serge comes back?
That's very kind. I'd be happy to do that. My name is Dorian Baxter, and I am indeed the only independent candidate. I'm so happy to be running independent because I have to tell you that I believe we're facing very extraordinary circumstances. And I would like to say that with the vacillations we've had from liberal to conservative to liberal and so on, it's time for us, I think, to elect an independent candidate. I've been here in Newmarket for 24 years. I've been a member of the Aurora Lions for 12 years. I'm now with the Newmarket Lions. But what's interesting is I straddle both communities. I'm from the community. And I think that one of the things I'd like to share with you is when you vote for me, you're voting for 4 candidates in one. I am a red Tory. I'm a blue liberal. I'm greener than the Green Party. And my socially progressive left wing can run circles around the NDP. My fiscally conservative right wing can literally hold all the main parties accountable. So we have to have that balance here. And what I like about my position with 2 wings, I've never seen a bird fly on one wing, never seen a plane fly on one wing. The trouble with the other parties, they're either one or the other. The other thing I'd like to point out is that in this particular election, we need to focus on standing on guard for Canada. Do you know we cannot allow the advance of totalitarian Trudeau policies? I think it's important to know Canada is under assault. You know, we have Chinese communist troops in this country that need to be sent home. It is important also to realize that vaccine mandates must be prevented at all costs. And in closing, our freedom of choice is essential to democracy. So I'm saying we need a strong voice. I, Dorian Baxter, if you vote for me, will be that strong voice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dorian. Serge, are you back? Can you hear me? Okay, we're going to move on then. Oh, Serge, can you hear me? Are you okay to speak now? You're muted.
I'm okay, so I'm just wondering if my internet will allow me. So I don't know what's going on. So why is it?
You're first. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm okay now?
Yep.
Okay, good. Where did I stop? Where did I freeze?
You're probably better off to just start again.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I'm Serge Korovitsyn, and I live in Oak Ridges, and I'm running for Libertarian Party of Canada. I'm an immigrant from Soviet Union, so I came to Canada 30 years ago. And the reason I'm running so is to educate people about libertarianism and about free choices, about less government, and so that we do, and the dangers of socialism. So I mean, I already ran from that, so I don't. I mean, I see all the signs. What we're doing here is building socialism. I mean, it could be that we have to maybe build it, and then we'll have to become libertarians after understanding how bad it is. Unfortunately, many people just, they don't know how bad socialism is and how it affects our lives. It leads to dictatorship. The signs of it we just saw recently with the vaccination mandates, vaccination passports, ordering to wear masks, and like all other orders. So where government disregards our freedoms as stipulated in Charter of Rights, and pushes us to do things which violates our freedoms. Um, I mean, I don't really want to become MP, but I mean, if people will choose me, which is not a big chance, but I mean, it's fine, and I will go and do the work. The idea for the Libertarian Party is to educate people. That's the main thing, so that we stop robbing the rich people and giving to the poor, or like selected poor people. So I mean, any when we go
Time.
Sorry.
Time.
Oh, okay. So I would ask everyone to vote for liberty, vote for personal choice, individual, and vote for Charter of Rights. I mean, everyone read it, see.
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you. We're going to move on to the federal questions, debate questions now. The first one, and we'll begin with the NDP party this time. Many business owners are asking, why are we having an election right now? Especially when many businesses are still struggling to stay open and the cost of a federal election is estimated to hit over 660 million. What do you believe to be the one key issue for business owners moving forward and looking for reassurance? We'll start with you, Yvonne.
Sandra, I'm not sure if it's just me, but it seemed like your voice went really lower there. So I can hear you, but I had to turn my volume
You
up.
want me to reread it?
No, I heard this question, but I just listened. So I think businesses are concerned. I don't think anybody wanted an election called during a pandemic. I won't go there right now for why I think it was, but I think during COVID, the NDP had small business back, making sure we had a wage subsidy, emergency relief, capping merchant fees, and just really going to bat for small business. And I think that's what we've said we would continue to do. We don't want to see wage and rent subsidies lifted until people are back on their feet. We want to provide EI and CCP contributions for small business, for their employers to retrain and to bring those folks back. So we have a very important role to be able to help with merchant fees as well. I think what we want to make sure is we help small business with the bottom line so that they can recover and continue to be an employer in our.
Thank you. Janice, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I won't repeat everything Yvonne said, but definitely we need to focus on getting business back, getting jobs back in our economy, getting more people working again. We've lost a lot of jobs, especially young people. I have three just after university aged young people in my house, and all of them lost their jobs. I mean, we have really hit young people hard. And, you know, we have to continue wage subsidies. We have to give bonuses to businesses for hiring so that we can bring back those jobs. And I think COVID has proved that when you do have a basic livable income as a minimum for everyone in the community, business will do better. Business will not die, right? Like I know people think it's, oh, you're throwing money away, but it's not true. The money comes back through taxes. The money comes back through business and a moving economy. When people can only afford food and rent, which is basically it in York Region right now. If you make under $50,000 a year, you're not spending money in businesses. You're not shopping. You're not traveling. You're not participating in cultural activities that keep the economy booming. So that is the prime thing, is to keep the businesses moving and keep money in people's hands and keep that money moving in our society, because that's what an economy needs to do. It needs to grow and it needs to move. We also need to fix the tax system. There's just too much of it on the backs of small business and individuals. It has to go to the people who can afford to get us out of the recession, the people that profited the most.
Time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to the Green Party, Tim.
Yeah, I think we have a unique situation we've never faced before. So, you know, to find the appropriate, I'm going to say cooperative alliance between employers and employees. I mean, truly, this is not a one-sided subsidy just for employers, nor do we just push up the minimum wage. So we have to find something that's just and appropriate for both sides. And for employers and for the business, they need to be supported with the appropriate training incentives, hiring incentives to allow them to certainly build their force back in a profitable manner. You know, I don't debate, but I certainly understand that the necessity of a small business to make money. So it has to be a two-sided coin. And I think we've got a unique opportunity, particularly for small business and in York Region, Richmond Hill, Newmarket, because we have a lot of very strong intellectual property. So we too can actually be part of the, I'm going to say the renewable economy. And we can base ourselves through small business because that is the engine. That's where people work day in and day out, is in small businesses. We can develop, support those groups, and that in turn will naturally stimulate employment and will stimulate ongoing. So it really becomes a much more just, fair environment to share in a renewable for all.
Thank you. Anthony?
I'm assuming there's a lot of entrepreneurs on this call, considering we're dealing with the Aurora Chamber of Commerce here. As an entrepreneur myself, I know that the worst, the bane of my existence is when I get a call from the CRA. Okay, and so why is that? It's because you know the value of every dollar. You have built your own ladder, whereas everyone on this call just climbs that ladder. And it's frustrating to see this government put endless dollars to waste under these liberals. Day in and day out, you don't know the value of the dollar. Everyone on this call does, because they work day in, day out to build something for themselves. Where I stand with the people is that we need less government oversight in any sort of involvement when it comes to taxation, when it comes to income tax. Where we need to focus on is incentivizing businesses to stay in Canada and not leave for Florida, because that's what's happening right now. Because businesses are fleeing Ontario, they're fleeing California, they're fleeing New York. Why? Because of taxation and mandates. There's tax structurations out of the Barbados. Why does that happen? Because it is insane when this government has done nothing but implement laws. And now with COVID, you think your employees who are unvaccinated are not going to come after you in the court of law because of their human rights and charters of freedoms? Think again, everyone. Think again on this call.
Thank you. Dorian?
Yes, I'm really
Oh,
grateful
sorry,
to be able
sorry,
to. I'm sorry, is it for me?
Yep, it's you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to point out that as an independent candidate, I will have a loud voice dealing with the need for wage sensitivity. It's just not happening with this government. Dealing with the lowering of taxes, making it much more viable for these businesses to be able to move forward. Also, I really feel that when we look at what the merchant fees, they've got to be affordable. They just cannot just be adding all these various fees, which is pushing people out of the work market. The other thing that I think is very important, and this was mentioned by the NDP, and I agree with this, the CCP contributions for training have to be increased. There's got to be a realization that people need all the help we can possibly give them. I agree totally, and this is the green side of it, we need a renewable economy. As somebody who is running as an independent, I will have a platform that focuses entirely upon Newmarket Aurora businesses. I'll be meeting with them on a regular basis to see how we can give them the strength and the forward thrust required. And the other thing is, I'll just close on this and say, for heaven's sake, no more shutdowns. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Serge?
Yeah, I'm actually right now in my office, in my warehouse, and I have 5 employees, and I'm I guess entrepreneur business owner. So I have a hard time finding employees. I mean, I've been stayed open throughout the pandemic, and well, because we serve science community, and from point on, I mean, we always have hard time finding people because everyone get on the government welfare to receive whatever those I don't know what they call them, like $2,000 a month or something. So, and the people still receiving them. So I cannot find people. I mean, like minimum wage right now, like even though it's official, I think whatever, it's $14.50. Well, no, it's like 18. Okay, so I mean like, or like 17, I don't know. I mean, there's no one I can find right now to work for me. And I have open positions, people don't even reply. Okay, so, and I cannot afford to pay too much, but I mean, it's just not happening. So all this, I guess, government shutdowns and government welfare affected the small businesses. Some of the businesses will survive and some probably going to fail, but this is normal life. That's the way it's supposed to be. But really, I mean, if we wouldn't have government intervention into the business lives, and the government wouldn't tell us what to do, we can make our own choices, and small businesses will thrive. So I mean, it's the backbone of Canadian economy.
Tony? You're muted, Tony.
That count for timeout for me, Sandra. There's trouble getting my microphone. Well, first and foremost, you know, the Canada Emergency Relief Benefit, the wage subsidy, the emergency bank accounts, and the regional support programs that we had during the pandemic. I'm appalled that anyone would think that we're throwing money aside. I've talked to many businesses, and they've talked to me about how important the wage subsidy was, how important it was for that to keep people on the payroll, to make sure that people had food on the table. My wife and I volunteer for the food bank and make deliveries, and we see on the ground what the effect of this pandemic has had. And for anyone to suggest that the government should not have a conscience and not support people who are in dire circumstances, not because of their own fault, but because of the situation, I think is just reflects how disconnected those individuals are. I do want to say that we will be extending the recovery hiring program until next April, so that we can continue our promise to be there whenever businesses need us for as long as they need us. And our intention is to make sure that we get back to the pre-pandemic economy, but also build a foundation that takes us forward into the future and builds an economy that will support the environment and will support science and research.
Thank you, Tony. Leah?
Yeah, I won't repeat what Tony says, but of course I agree completely. And Anthony, just to correct the record, I've not been in Parliament before. I'm a business person. I've helped to grow a very successful company and I've been an entrepreneur as well. And I think we have a lot of people who have been involved in business and understand the importance of the help of government, especially through something like the pandemic we've just been through. I'm not sure who you were talking to during the pandemic, but the small businesses I was talking to in our riding were in desperate need of help, and many of them would have shuttered their doors without the assistance.
I would like to respond to her after this. Thank you.
No.
However, I would say I think now we are pivoting. One of the best ways to avoid future lockdowns in businesses is for everyone to get vaccinated. We all know that vaccines are the best way to end this pandemic right now. And I think our Liberal government has been strong against opposition, against people throwing rocks at us, against name calling, to say that this is the best way for us to move forward. And our small businesses cannot afford another shutdown. I would say that our government has had the backs of Canadians, and we have some amazing programs going forward to help businesses get back on their feet. I'd also say that organizations like the chamber here have been really good in supporting small business owners. I've been on a number of the meetings where just having that someone else to talk to work with. And I would again commend you because I think you've been very innovative in developing programs, online programs to help. Our government is now has 2 new programs to help young people train to help businesses, both in the green certification and also in technology to further enhance online programs. This is the type of thing our government should be doing in these transitions. And I am proud of our track record. And as a business person, I am proud of the work this chamber has done for us.
Thank you, Leah. On to question 2. It has been stated that Canada has a housing crisis as buying or renting a dwelling is slipping out of reach of medium income households and severely impacting the ability of young families to own a home. The capital gains tax, a ban on foreign investors buying residential properties in Canada, increasing the limit on mortgage insurance and adjusting the stress test to assist non-salaried or self-employed borrowers are all noted in party platforms. How does your party propose to address the housing affordability issue and the rising house prices? We'll start with the Green Party this time, Tim.
Yeah, sure. So the Green Party fundamentally believes that proper housing and the lack of homelessness is a fundamental right. It's just it's in our core, it's in our mantra, and that is an absolute necessity. It is driven, and the market must, in many ways, flow from natural supply and demand, but there is a need for governmental incentive to support certain growth. The party is certainly, we believe there's a need for about 350,000 units. There's a larger need, but fundamentally, we're not seeing we would build 1 million for or 1 million or any units. There's 350,000 units, 50,000 would be for the homeless, 300,000 for subsidized across the country that would be built over the next 7 or 8 years. Equally, we'd make housing a top priority. There'd be a minister appointed, an advocate at the highest level, and ongoingly support for both the housing industry and the renters, because what we've seen in our economy as we've certainly of new home construction and new condominium construction done unregulated and made a very significant business as opposed to making these properties available to natural renters. We reset the control for all individuals to rent.
Anthony?
Thank you for your time. Just to respond to Leah, yes, I am an entrepreneur and I don't subscribe to discrimination.
Anthony, there'll be no responses. I've just muted you. Please, there's no responses. Please
As for the housing, I'll go with the housing then.
Yep, thank you.
So if anyone would like an answer to that other thing, just email me, I'll provide that. But for housing, we have a huge supply issue in Ontario. We have 400,000 immigrants coming into Canada each year. Housing is at a detriment right now because of the supply side of things. We can't go lower than 1% interest rates for mortgages. We just can't do it. We're seeing negative percentages in Europe. And what's going on? We're having wealth transferred through your parents. Millennials can only buy homes now, like myself, if you get a loan from bank of mom and dad. Why? Because the supply issue and government bureaucracy is not allowing developers to build anything anywhere because of the mandates. It takes 12 years, and I was at Elliston, 12 years to even start a development project because of some environmentalist policy. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good tree, I love a good environment, I love a good park. Where do you draw the line? Do you draw the line on homelessness? Do you draw the line at no homes for the millennial generation? We need more homes, which means less government regulation so that developers can then say, I can build the home. I can actually afford to build the home so you guys can buy it. And that's our stance.
Thank you. On to Serge.
I think last time when we had this debate, so I mentioned that, and I guess we have probably new people, and I will mention that again. When I came to Canada in 1991, the house in downtown cost Toronto cost $150,000. So, I mean, the housing was, rent was like $500 in downtown. In the good buildings, etc. So was it affordable? No, because people didn't have jobs. The minimum wage back then was like $5.25, as I believe, and lots of unemployed people, bad economy. So the houses were not affordable. Now again, we at the point where within 30 years, all running governments created so much inflation, so that the prices of the
Lost him again. Okay, we'll move on to Dorian. That's okay.
Okay, thank you very much. And I have to say that my focus entirely will be on Newmarket Aurora needs. I think that rather than a generic approach and saying, well, you know, and as an independent, that's where my focus will have to be. I've been in Newmarket over 24 years, and I've straddled the northern part of Aurora as well. A lot of people connected to my congregation are from those areas, and I've helped a lot of people with housing. But the fact of the matter is that the focus needs to be on the individual. And I have to say that, you know, when we talk generically, and I realize it sounds great to say, you know, that one party will commit to 350,000 units, you know, for the homeless, and then 300,000 units to be subsidized. All of that is great, but what really matters to me right now is a focus on this community. I have on my flyer, you know, from the community for the community. And as somebody that is running independently, I don't need to worry about being a shill for whether it be Prime Minister Trudeau or Prime Minister O'Toole. I can do what I feel is right for the individual. So for me, it is a total crisis. It's terrible to see what is happening. Even rental stuff is almost impossible. And the price is right out of the, right off the Richter scale. So for me, I can say this, that if I am elected as your first independent here, you will see the difference. And I like to tell people, Dorian will make the difference. Thank you so much.
Sandra, Shauna, can you tell me how much time Serge had left?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. Serge, if you want to take your 30 seconds to finish up.
Okay, so I'm not sure where it froze, but yeah, so we need to create opportunity for businesses to build more housing as well. There's lots of government property in the prime real estate which should be vacated by all level of governments. Include, like, if you live in Oak Ridges, you probably know the French school at I think it's by the basics just in front of there. So it was run down school, and instead of like basically sell that prime real estate land, they rebuild a new school. And I don't think that school even being used. I haven't seen a single student there for the past 10 years.
Thank you. Tony?
Thank you, Sandra. Well, first and foremost, everybody deserves to have a safe and affordable place to call home. And we've all seen rents continue to rise. It's becoming increasingly unaffordable for too many to buy their first homes. And we need to make sure that we both address the supply issue and take the steps to bring down the costs of housing in general. You know, in our party, in our platform, we've committed to build, to repair, and to maintain 1.4 million affordable homes over the next 4 years. We've committed to develop a rent-to-own plan, and we've established a $40,000 tax-free savings account for housing, tax-free in and tax-free out. And we're also committed to developing a deferred mortgage loan program, which is an extension or a change from the equity position that we had developed earlier. And more importantly, we want to make sure that the process is balanced. So we're going to be introducing the Buyer's Bill of Rights for home inspections, for transparency in the process. We're going to ban blind bidding. And we will also be introducing a 2-year foreign ownership plan. You know, the Liberal Party is the party that implemented Canada's very first multi-billion-dollar 10-year housing strategy. And we've already built thousands of new homes, and we are cutting homelessness substantially. And there's a lot of success in the rapid housing program. We've also set forward the Housing Innovation Fund to help develop housing options. And let's not lose sight of the fact that the Canada Child Benefit helps young families pay bills to raise their families.
Thank you, Tony. Leah?
Yes, I think Tony described the programs very well. I just want to say 2 things. One is, Dorian, you mentioned working for the people in your area. And I think it's the job of every member of parliament, not just independent members, to make sure that their focus is their community. And my focus will be on Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill. to work and make sure that we get the programs that are available to us to help address this housing crisis. And it is a crisis. I think it's a crisis of affordability. We need to look at what's happening in our area. I disagree here on not having regulations because I do think protecting our green space and our environment is critical. But this is a place where the government policies can really help to fund purpose rental housing, for example, to address homelessness and to ensure through some of the policies Tony's talked about that young people have a chance to buy their first home and get in the market. Additionally, I would say the Liberal Party's childcare policy, which the Conservatives have said they will not go forward on. Right now, childcare in York Region or in our area is like a second mortgage. This childcare program, cutting costs in half next year and $10 a day childcare within 5 years will be a game changer for families. You will not have to pay $2,000, $4,000 a month for childcare. And this will allow people to have more resources to put into buying their first home. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Yvonne?
Thank you. So housing is a global crisis. Yes, we're talking about Newmarket Aurora, but there's certain root causes to it that we really need to attend to. And the NDP has committed to 20% foreign buyers tax to curb speculation and really fight money laundering, because these are bigger issues that need to be addressed at the federal level. And it might come as a surprise, but in York Region, Newmarket has probably the highest percentage of foreign owned, which doesn't mean people moving here to live. It means ownership by large real estate investment trusts and that kind of thing. And those are the folks that we need to tax heavily to dissuade them from doing that kind of thing. We need fast start funds for co-ops and social and not-profit housing. I agree that the National Housing Strategy was a significant first step forward, but what it hasn't been able to do is move along quick enough the building of housing or even purpose-built rental. A lot of the funds have gone to for-profit developers to do a small percentage of housing for a short length of time. We see that all over the region, but in particular in Newmarket. And so what we need is building houses that actually will stay affordable. So that's the not-for-profit developers. So we need to fast track funds for those types of homes and also for co-ownership models, because people still want to own, but there are other models that we can explore. For renters, for those that really cannot afford their rent and stay housed right now, a $5,000 annual rent subsidy. We're going to double the home buyer's tax credit. But what I think we have to realize, in the 90s, we stopped building housing, and that's been a crisis that started then.
Janice?
I'll start where Yvonne left off. 1994 is when the federal government, Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin, got out of the housing business. And, you know, it was supposed to trickle down from the private sector. Provinces were left to try and fill the gap, but nothing has happened. So we've had, you know, almost, you know, decades of no new housing built, right? Except for, as Yvonne said, in small, you know, small portions of large developments. So we definitely have to have federal government money purchasing houses, making a.
Janice, you're on mute. I'm not sure what happened, but you got muted.
I got muted a long time ago.
No, just a couple of seconds.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so we have to build housing. If you don't build the housing, we won't have it. But the rental issue is a serious problem. I've had 2 close friends have to find new housing anywhere in York Region, and it is impossible to find anything less than $2,200 a month. Like, that's not even enough space for a family if you have kids. It's just nobody can afford it. But not only can you not afford it, you're making proposals like when people are purchasing a house and people are offering like more money than what the landlord is asking for so that they can secure that spot because their family needs a house. People are offering to pay a year in advance. Like, you can't compete against that if you're just a regular worker with a family and trying to survive. And another really huge problem I think we can all see in our own neighborhoods is the houses. Nobody's living in them, not nobody, but a lot of houses, they're just, especially the smaller ones, they're just being flipped and flipped until they're way out of control. So we have to put in some measures to stop that.
Thank you. All right, on to question 3. the federal deficit was 354 billion in fiscal year 2020, 2021, and is projected to be 154 billion next year and is slated to decline to 30.7 billion 2025, 2026. How does your party platform address the deficit? How long will deficit reduction take, and how does the plan to reduce the deficit impact businesses and their owners? We'll start with the PPC party this time, Anthony.
So I just want to just reiterate this fact that $634.4 billion was spent and created debt by every single prime minister prior to Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau just spent $659 billion. That is more than every single prime minister to ever exist. How is no one mad about this? That is infuriating. In fact, it's criminal. It is completely criminal. And, you know, we need to move forward responsibly because that's why housing is so expensive. Why? Because the Canadian dollar has been debased. Now, a house is $1 million. Not for our parents, though. The Canadian dollar needs to be restored. We need to really hone in on what it means to pay down this deficit. And frankly, the damage that's been done by this previous administration, we as the PPC party need to hold taxes as is. But moving forward, our first mandate will be to lower taxes for everyone, for businesses, for income. It is insulting to go out and say that this administration hasn't been completely reckless with our money that we've earned collectively. And it's time to restore order there because frankly, the PPC and the people of Canada have had enough.
Oh, thank you. On to Serge.
Okay, so the libertarian fundamental view on the government is so the government should be really.
Oh, geez. Okay, we're going to go on to Dorian then.
Yes, thank you so much. You know, it's funny, according to my research, the federal deficit in 2020 was $3.1 trillion. Now, can you just repeat the figure you gave, if you could, for a moment?
Federal deficit was 354 billion, 16.1% of the GDP.
354 billion. Isn't that interesting? Because my research indicated it's 3.1 trillion, and that was in 2020, and that it is rising astronomically. Now, you know, as somebody who hopes to be the first independent candidate for Newmarket Aurora and a very strong voice, this will be number one on my agenda. I cannot believe that currently, if you bring this down to per capita, the debt that we have now actually is approximately 64,000 Canadian dollars per person. Now, this is untenable. It is a situation whereby our children's children and their children are going to be enslaved. I have to agree with Anthony. I am totally mortified to think that this prime minister, and I have to use the word squandered, has squandered 659 billion Canadian hard-earned dollars. The time has come for all of us to stand on guard for this country of ours financially. I do find it shocking to take a look.
Time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll go back to Serge.
Okay, I turn off my video, so probably that will help. I probably upload something with the upload stream. In any case, yeah, so libertarian stand for smaller government. So, and I guess the idea to lower the debt would be to fire 90% of the government ministries and government offices. I mean, we don't need that many. So, I mean, we've been as a country, so we've been creating more ministries and more ministries, more government employees, which can be, and everything can be run by private sector. So once we do that, so we have to stop government babysit everyone, so and then get into the lives of the citizens of Canada. So I mean, that's, I mean, I've been to airport the other day, so flying to Edmonton, and we have lots of security people humiliating every Canadian entering the airport to the gates, right? So I mean, like, they really, I mean, like, it's been 20 years or whatever since the 9/11 happens. I mean, every person being searched, interrogated, I mean, almost stripped. I mean, like,
Time.
fine.
Thank you. Tony? You're muted, Tony.
Muted, Tony.
Tony, you're muted.
Sorry, Sandra. I've been taking the lead on the other discussions. I'll let Leah take the lead on this discussion and I'll follow her comments, if that's okay with you.
Sure, Leah?
Thanks, Tony. Yes, there's a lot that can be said about the deficit right now and the government spending. I would say this, we were going to go into debt. This is the largest economic crisis to have faced Canada since the Great Depression. You know, our government had Canadians' backs and we went into debt for the Canadians who couldn't do it. I would ask anyone who's criticizing this, would you have let people go hungry? Would you have let all these small businesses fail? I think we had to do this. We did the right thing by taking this on. And the money wasn't squandered. The money was spent. And we already see that our economy is starting to come back. Our jobs are returning more quickly because we did keep money in the economy. As a Canadian, I am proud of the fact that our government has invested in the Canada Child Benefit and lifted almost 500,000 children out of poverty. Quite frankly, I think it's an embarrassment when a country as rich as ours can sit here and let kids grow up in poverty. Same with our seniors. We have increased OAS and GIS for survivor benefits. A lot of single women, seniors, are living below the poverty line. And we have a wealthy country and we have the ability to help people. We have to help our businesses because they are our backbone. We have to make sure our economy is thriving, but we cannot ignore the people of Canada. And I think that our plan is the only one that is costed. That's why you're quoting the numbers for the Liberal Party. The Conservatives have not. And when you compare other parties' platforms, they're not cutting spending either, because everyone knows that right now is not the time to do that.
Time.
Tony, back to you.
Great, thank you, Sandra. First and foremost, let me remind everyone this is an unprecedented pandemic. The hardship that our economy has suffered over the last 18 months has never been seen before. And a responsible government is a government that makes sure that we look after our citizens, we look after our businesses. And I believe that Leah has articulated it very well, and there's not much more to add to that, except for those that feel that we shouldn't have done anything are only reflecting that they do not truly understand the scale and the scope of this country and the values that we stand for. I'm not one to turn my back on those values.
Thank you. Yvonne?
So I will concur with Leah and Tony on this. I mean, I would like to know what people would have done if they had been in power and who they would have let die. But I'm going to take a different tack on this. And I think that deficits and debt are also not something that we just arrive at as a result of a pandemic. And I think part of what we haven't looked at is revenue sources. And so the NDP has said, the weight of this pandemic cannot be borne on the back of those who've already been hit the hardest. We need to raise revenues, not cut programs and services. We have to recognize that the big business job creators, that stuff is never borne out. And that for many years, we've been told by the Liberals and Conservatives both that if we hand out tax cuts to corporations, that'll translate into business investment and good jobs. And that just doesn't happen. So we are talking about a fiscally responsible approach, which is to bring back the corporate tax rate to pre-2010 levels, raise the top marginal tax levels, which is over 200,000 by 2 points, and add a wealth tax in. We also saw corporations in this country become $78 billion richer in the last year and a half since the first lockdown. Like, that's insane and it's not okay. Why are we not talking about that? I mean, that's what always is the question for me. And if people want to talk about the NDP and our plans, provincially, we have the best track record in terms of fiscal responsibility, lower deficits because we look at revenue sources. We own resources and we gain revenue for that. So we always find ways to pay for things. So it's absolutely rich when the Conservatives and Liberals want to tell us that the NDP is not responsible. We have had the best track record provincially for many, many years.
Thank you, Janice.
Hi, we watched a private rocket ship go into space, and the man who paid for it thanked his workers for taking low wages so he could afford that, and thank his customers. So, this is outrageous. We can't have this growing gap between the richest in the society and the poorest. You cannot sustain an economy where nobody can afford to buy your products. It's ridiculous. We go into debt to get a house. We go into debt to put our kids through university or college. We go into debt to build a better future. And I've been hearing for the last 40, 50 years, people telling us that our children will be slaves. Well, it's 50 years later and it's not true. The economy has to keep moving. And the best way to do that is a fair tax system. It used to be that business paid about 2/3 of the taxes and individuals, this is about 30 years ago, individuals paid the other third. And now it's like 80-20 in favor of business. It's just outrageous that they come here and get free healthcare for their workers, free training, all the benefits that they don't have to pay for, and yet, move to another country as quick as they can if they can do it cheaper. So that we're not buying their loyalty with all these tax breaks. We also need a fair trade system. When we moved to free trade systems, we lost all our very strong manufacturing, well-paid jobs. And now everyone's making minimum wage and doing 3 jobs part-time. You can't sustain a tax.
Thank you. Tim?
I'm going to go back to the question. So the question was about our deficit. And quite frankly, our deficit was on an extremely high rate well before the pandemic. And if we all remember back to the end of 2019, the promises of a positive deficit operational in the year were thrown out the window long before we ever heard of the word COVID. So let's understand that first. Right now, our tax freedom day is late July. In fact, when we bring in, and Dorian, I think you're bang on with your $64,000 question, when we bring it in, it is our kids and it is our grandkids. That's why an old guy like me is sitting here and very, very concerned. We are on the cusp of a real difficult situation. The Bank of Canada continues to look at their navel because they have to, because we are sitting at a 1% rate. When that changes, forget the discussion about inflation or housing. That will damage us significantly. We have to also manage our finances responsibly. The party platforms, including the Green platform, all need to be appropriately costed before they're introduced. And honestly, we need to be responsible, including this election, which was $650,000. Sorry, 650 million, which means it'll be 850 when the dust settles. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, on to question 4.
Did I get a chance to speak on that?
Oh, Dorian, I missed you.
You did. I took you.
No, you did.
No, I didn't. I was speaking about that. That was
from. I apologize, Dorian. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I'll be very quick here because I know time is of the essence, but with the greatest of respect to what was said earlier, I believe that raising corporate taxes is equivalent to the kiss of death to attracting the new businesses we need, not only in Ontario, but in every province across Canada. It is absolutely important for us to realize that we do have a system of capitalism that can work and can work extremely well. We also need to start diplomatically tapping into the generosity of the private sector. Frank Stronach, who happens to be a personal friend of mine, is a case in point. When he is approached, one only has to look to see what he's done for Newmarket Aurora out of the generosity and goodness of his heart. I know many, many others are the same way. We don't need to be yelling and shouting and suggesting that they have to, suddenly be the entire debt is on their back, but they want to help. And so I would like to see, certainly if I am elected, and I hope that is the case, I would like to open up communications, not just with people like Frank Stronach, but people across this nation that are concerned about Canada and about these incredible small businesses. There's no doubt our small businesses are the engine of the Canadian economy. And it's imperative for us to do everything we can to help them to be able to move forward in the way they need to. And thank you for letting me slip back in there. Appreciate that.
Sorry about that, Dorian. Yeah.
It's okay.
Okay, on to question 4. The current support programs like SERVE and CEWS will be ending shortly. These have assisted small businesses to weather the storm and in some cases have been the only lifeline available to continue their businesses. With the 4th wave underway, many of these same businesses will not be able to continue to survive without some form of support. What do you believe needs to be done for businesses for the future? We'll start with Serge this time.
I'm gonna stop my video. I believe it's just government get out of the way, and that will help small businesses. Small businesses can adjust, we can be very, very smart in the way we do business, and we can quickly adapt to the change, and we can, as a small business, we can change. Okay, so we don't need government to tell us what to do. Okay, and we don't need, for example, I've never collected any of wage subsidies. They're only good for big companies, so big companies can get them. I can't because I have to prove my revenue drop. So, and that's whatever. So it's just like it's waste. Yeah, you helping like big corporations, but that's what you do. So just government get out of the business of small business. Let us do what we do best, and we will survive. And if someone will fold, then will fold, and they will create new business, and they will be even better. So sometimes you have to fall down to raise up, and that's. I'm just talking like a business owner, not even like a candidate. Thank you.
All right, thank you. On to Dorian.
Yes, I was going to say that, on the one hand, I do want to commend the compassion and the concern demonstrated by our current Prime Minister. But the problem is he has tripped over his own shoelaces by literally prolonging this. And I think it was said earlier, and I agree with it, we have a situation now where many people are telling me, hey, it doesn't benefit me to go back to work when I can get all this money on the CERB. So there's got to be that balance. And no matter how well intentioned our current government has been, they have not paid attention to all the details. There are people that have been ripping off this CERB. I happen to know that this is not just a fabricated statement, and nobody is taking note of that. If you're going to do this sort of thing, you have to make sure the people that need it are the people that get it. I'm telling you right now, if somebody were to do an audit, you'd be shocked to see how lackadaisical this Prime Minister and his government have been in terms of just throwing money away. In fact, I would say that it is shocking, in my view, to see the damage Trudeau has done to our entire Canadian economy. We've got to stop the financial bleeding. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tony?
Hi, Sandra. Sorry again. I'm having a little trouble with my mouse. So let me start off by saying that small businesses are the heart of our community, and I've been an advocate for small businesses for decades, and I'll continue to be as we work our way through this recovery. And we've done everything we can to keep these businesses afloat and our workers employed over the last 18 months. And I've had a ton of experience in working with small business. I was a bank branch manager and an independent business center manager for over 30 years. I was the founding director and the president of the Newmarket Chamber of Commerce. And I've worked with SMEs throughout most of my career. Our local economy is not made up of big national accounts, and it's the small and medium enterprises that are the heart of it. And that's why I think we focus on making sure that we've got the funding available that they needed. I've had many conversations with people who have found that they needed the supports we had to keep people on the payroll so that people had food on the table. And in addition to that, there are a number of programs that have been very productive, both for businesses and for our youth. The Canada Summer Jobs, for example, in Newmarket, Aurora, we invested $2.4 million, 649 jobs, so that students could learn and have a career opportunity during the summer months and save money towards their tuition, as well as support employers to get them through the summer months. You know, we've had some very significant MyTac workers, and there are a number of other programs that I'm sure Leah will pick up after I've stopped.
Leah?
Thank you, Tony. Yes, I think the supports we've given business have been necessary. I think we're starting to pivot, but first we have to get through the pandemic. It is ongoing, and we need to continue to get people vaccinated so that we can get through this. I would say that's the number one thing. I think when it comes to CERB, that $2,000 a month or $24,000 a year is not a luxurious living. I think personally, I believe that people, the respect and dignity of people goes with having a job, a well-paying job. And if they feel they're going to be safe and can work and get a good income, they will work. We are starting to pivot in the party to increase the Canada Workers benefits so that people who are making minimum wage will get their earnings topped up so that they will make a better living, so that they will not be living below the poverty line. And I think that is an important program. Likewise, we're going to continue the Canada Wage Subsidy to help businesses hire people back. I think our small businesses still need support to get through this and to get back on their feet. And unlike Serge, I do not want to see businesses shutting down. I think it's been a tough time. It's not the fault of business owners if they haven't been able to survive on their own. And I think our government is doing exactly the right thing in continuing to support them until we get through this.
Thank you. On to Yvonne.
Janice, did you want to go first this time?
Sure. Okay, so I think, yeah, I just lost my train of thought. I think we've seen a problem in this COVID crisis when we found out we don't make PPE in Canada anymore, like anywhere, right? So we're now dependent on other countries if they have any left over to send to our healthcare workers, and our healthcare workers are wearing garbage bags and reusing masks. So, you know, that was the beginning of this pandemic, and that is a huge issue. So like for our libertarian friends, if we have a fair trade system instead of a libertarian free trade system, you can see what's happened with the free trade libertarian. Get rid of all the rules, private sector goes with the money. They're not going to build in Canada. So we do need to keep the wage subsidies. We do need to support small business through this crisis so we can be strong again on the other end of it. We can't just give up. I mean, try buying a pair of Canadian made winter boots. This is the country of winter, and we don't make winter boots. We need to reinvest in manufacturing in Canada. We need to have a lot more support for business, because businesses in Canada actually employ Canadians, right? Instead of people from Mexico or people from Florida. We need to be keeping the jobs here, and that means we need manufacturing and we need business here, which means until we rebuild, we need to subsidize. It's for the future. It's the only way to get forward, or you're right, we will all have to move to other places where the jobs are.
Time.
Thank you. Yvonne, back to you.
Yeah, so we spoke a little bit about this earlier, and I would concur with the wage and rental subsidies until people are back on their feet. The thing that I didn't mention though too was implementing pharmacare for those businesses that are doing the right thing and already supporting their employees. We want to implement a universal pharmacare plan. The Liberals have been talking about it since 97, so we know they're interested. But that would save businesses $600 per employee per year on the cost of extended benefits. Universal childcare. I mean, we're talking about small businesses here, small and medium size. So they live in communities. They know the people that work for them. They care about them. And so I think knowing that universal childcare, $10 a day is available. And so we hope that the next government will move on that, because that means you don't have to worry about your employees. I think paid sick leave during the pandemic was a real missed opportunity at the federal level, because that's the reason people haven't gone to work. They've been very worried, and they're not living high off the hog on $2,000 a year, I can tell you that. And the other thing would be, we need to implement a COVID-19 excess profit tax. This is an additional 15% on the large corporations who did profit off the pandemic. So that's where I would say is one way of redistributing some of what was already spent, corporate welfare, I might call it, and redistribute that back to the smaller businesses who have hung in there and who will continue to provide jobs for people in our communities.
Thank you. Yvonne, Tim?
Yeah, I'm particularly supportive of, for small businesses, from a continuance of the appropriate rent subsidies. They will determine what they need. It should be tied to the right folks that need it. They will figure out the right level of employment and the right level of compensation for their associates. But it's the rent subsidy infrastructure that will make it work. Relative to the wage subsidy / CERB, I think the right approach is, to wean us off this very quickly. Ironically, our question before this was about the deficit. The monies we talk about adding, pharmacare, childcare, they are all adding to that. So we need to move in a direction where Canadians want to work, and let's make it an incentive, to move into the workforce at the appropriate level and at a fair compensation. Thank you.
Anthony?
So I think at the beginning of the pandemic back in March 2020, absolutely, we didn't know what it was. We didn't know facts. This was a very dangerous disease coming from China. We now know lockdowns don't work. We now know the vaccine efficacy is in question. We now know our civil rights are being mandated and stolen away from us day in, day out by this Liberal government. Now, if we continue with the rhetoric that lockdowns, if you don't get vaccinated, are going to solve things, at what point does this end? Follow the logic puzzle all the way down this rabbit hole that the Liberals have created. It is convenient that they continue to propagate this irresponsible lockdown scenario into the future. It's absolutely horrifying. Businesses under the PPC will be open immediately, safely, of course, and they will follow protocols as per the health and regulations that we mandate, collectively, responsibly. But now we know that this disease is responsible for killing 0.1% of the population, and we're going to continue to lock down societies. We're going to continue to lock down businesses. I came back from South Africa and Mexico, and they didn't lock down like we did. Why? Because they don't have bank accounts in South Africa. The majority of people are below the poverty line. They don't have the mechanism to distribute CERB. They just don't. So this is the conundrum here. Lock down by big government and get CERB and be reliant.
On to question 5. Canada has some of the highest credit card fees in the world. The pandemic has driven a shift to e-commerce, and a growing shift to cashless transactions puts pressure on small business profits because their fee percentages are generally higher. Furthermore, in 2019, there was a promise to eliminate the GST on those fees. Does your platform address this concern, and will it address lowering or changing the transaction fees? We'll start with Dorian this time.
Well, I think that, what it really boils down to is a balance. I think it would be a huge error. In fact, I would say it'd be a travesty to get rid of cash. There are benefits to cash. There are benefits to the cashless situation. The problem is that, and this was alluded to a few seconds ago, there are significant fees connected to cashless transactions. And this sometimes really messes up the small business people. Let me just say that I think the benefits are that, really there's no counterfeit currency. So $500 and $1,000 bills are not even bothering being printed. The cash theft goes right down, and there's easy payment involved. But the problem is that people that are using cashless, there can be overspending because it's easy. You click the button and then you've gone ahead and gone over your budget. There's also less literacy, hooked into that, and less availability of devices. I mean, there are certain people that are not going to have the wherewithal to be able to have the top of the line smartphone to do all these things. And I think also look at the economic inequality there, the cyber security and insecurity, and then don't forget identity theft. So I would have to say that the benefits of cash need to be acknowledged, and there should be that balance. And of course, the cashless has benefits too. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah, we'll start with you next.
Thank you. I mean, I think there are pros and cons to the evolution in any economy, and I think our cashless economy is here. The question is really, how do we help small businesses who are really not competitive when it comes to these transactions? And I think our government has already reduced these processing fees to an average of 1.4% in 2020. We're continuing to work on that. And right now there are consultations going on with stakeholders to try and find ways to further lower the average cost of interchange fees for merchants and to ensure that small businesses benefit from pricing that is similar to large businesses. I think that's essential. And I think that in our 2020, these consultations, by the way, are wrapping up September 10th. So I think it's tomorrow. In our fall 2021 economic statement, we're going to be addressing that. And if necessary, we're going to be making amendments to the Payment Card Networks Act that is already in place to regulate these interchange fees. So I think these are all important steps. I think we have to continue to make sure that our small and medium businesses, which provide so much employment in our communities and are more than just employers, they're part of the fabric of our communities. We have to make sure that they have a fair chance that they can compete with these larger stores. None of us want a lockdown going forward. None of us want that to happen. We all want our small businesses to stay open. And I think our government is working towards that. We have not shut down. We are not shutting down the small businesses. They are open, by the way, Anthony. You can go in if you want to visit some of them.
Fine.
Thank you. Tony, on to you.
Great. Thank you, Sandra. This pandemic has changed an awful lot of things in the way we do business, and doing business digitally has become the primary way of doing so. I'm really amazed at the way that businesses have been able to adapt. I go to the farmers market in Aurora, and a new market, and everybody's using Square now. And so we're finding ways to make sure that we can accommodate our customers and what their needs are. Fair pricing, of course, is something that we need to stay focused on. And the points that Leah has made, I think, are quite valid. And I would reiterate those if you would permit me to.
Okay. Thank you. Janice?
The NDP will put in a cap on the credit card fees that small businesses have to pay for the luxury of being able to use, allow their customers to use credit cards. It's, the fees are becoming a tax, but instead of a tax that goes to build in our communities, it's a tax that goes to profits for large banks, international companies. They're getting it on both sides. They're getting it from the purchaser. They're taking interest on, because nobody's paying off their credit cards. I think if you look at the history, so they're getting it from the consumer and they're getting it from the business. And what's happening is a little bit of electricity is going through a wire on a bank machine, right? There has to be a cap. We have to make this fair. Sure, banks need to recoup the cost of innovation and building the programming for bank machines and for all the transactions. But right now we're paying taxes to the banks and they're not giving us anything in return.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Yeah, I can't say that any better. I mean, if we're talking about taxes, these are really essentially that. So Leah mentioned that a maximum or cap of 1.4 in terms of increases, and we have committed to capping high credit card merchant fees at a maximum of 1%. And I just want to add to what Janice said. I think it's also, connected to a broader issue. So it isn't just small businesses, it's consumers, it's their workers. I mean, we pay some of the highest cellular rates in the world, and we also are in many ways being taken advantage of by the financial sector, whether it's merchant fees or people forced to rely on payday loan companies. A lot of this stuff used to be more regulated at the federal level, and now a lot of it has come down to the provincial level in terms of at least payday loan companies. So I know I'm a little off topic, but it's all part of the same piece, right? It's part of larger companies that are able to, that kind of got us in over a barrel, right? So we need to take stronger measures to put caps on those things that we can put caps on, and to look for ways to reduce prices for things that people need now. It's not like it's a luxury. It's part of our everyday life.
Tim?
Yeah, just to clarify, I know everyone knows, but we do get 45 days worth of free money. So understand that, before you have to pay anything. I agree, you need to manage certainly your fees to a certain level. But I think the best thing we could do for all Canadians, and then let the economy flow as it would, is really around financial literacy, and particularly with credit card use. And that enables, the consumer to make that decision, in the right way, to understand the implications of when they're using the credit card, and as well for the business owner, whether they influence or determine that they're going to make a discount for a cash transaction or anything along that lines. It makes a big difference. Certainly credit card companies right now, as we have faced back-to-back 3.5% to 4% inflation, have had a very banner July and August, and will continue to. There's no question about it, but that's if consumers choose to delay significantly, that settlement. So I think there's a fine balance here, and really it come down to knowing the transaction overall in a positive way. Debit fees are, I thought debit cards are also interesting, appear to be free money, but we have to understand, that comes down into bank transactions elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Anthony?
So there's pros and cons to a cashless society, but the PPC stands against eliminating cash altogether. We just absolutely believe that at the end of the day, there's going to be a black market to barter if needed. You can't get rid of cash. It's something that's innate to the culture. If you do get rid of cash, you'll have a subculture of people just bartering, trading, and doing all things underground. And I think to monitor that just expands government oversight into a bureaucracy that is just beyond us. But something that hasn't been mentioned amongst all the candidates is we're actually going through a fiscal revolution. And thankfully it couldn't come soon enough, because the Liberals have squandered, and that's the word, squandered, the dollars in our bank account. And so Canadians in the millennials are now looking at things like Bitcoin, things like cryptocurrencies, to get ahead in the game, to really see, we have been led down a path of irresponsibility. How do we usurp that? And this is what's happening. And unfortunately, it's not being heard at Parliament. It's part of the reason why I'm running. It's part of the reason why we need more young people in Parliament now for creative solutions to these never-ending problems.
Thank you. Serge?
I think it's again for the Libertarians, so as government get out of business. That's not your business about the fees. We as business owners will vote with our feet, right? So like we don't accept credit, like in my business, we don't accept credit cards. We accept Interact, nice system. We accept cryptocurrency. You can pay Bitcoin, Ethereum, you can pay Monero, you can pay whatever cryptocurrency. It's good with us. You can pay us in gold or silver, you can pay in cash, you can pay direct bank deposit. That works too. So, I mean, we don't take credit cards. I mean, we don't have to. I mean, like they not necessarily have to be. I mean, like in the government, I mean, what's government business in this? I mean, like whom are you helping? I mean, the government, if the fee's too high, yeah, people are gonna switch. I mean, the more businesses, they're gonna switch to crypto. I mean, like, and that's basically goodbye Bank of Canada. That will be goodbye all like free giveaway money, inflation, etc. I mean, it's gonna happen, not today, but I mean, maybe in 10 years. And yeah, so just government get out of business. It's not.
Thank you. On to question 6. And the last question. So climate change is top of mind after a summer of intense heat waves and wildfires sweeping through Ontario and BC rural communities. A recent landmark report from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change foresees a grim future with more of the same and worse if we don't act now. An urgent call to action from the International Energy Agency mapped out a path to net zero emissions by 2050. But Canada has yet to meet an emissions reduction goal, and the Paris Agreement climate targets may soon move out of reach without immediate and massive greenhouse gas reductions, according to the IPCC report. The impact of these very important climate change requirements and the cost to implement for businesses will be significant. How will your government support business to implement these changes? We'll go back to the original listing. Tony, we'll start with you.
I'll defer to Leah as well and give her the opportunity to respond, and I'll follow that.
Okay, Leah.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for having this question on climate change. I really think it is an incredibly important issue right now, is I think the most important issue facing us. And it is one of the reasons why I'm urging people to vote for the Liberal government. The Globe and Mail and other sources have looked at all of the climate plans and have determined that the Liberals is the most actionable, affordable, and effective plan to move forward. We have a strong plan, and we need to continue to do it. And I would just say on the way to get there, we have implemented the price on pollution. This market mechanism, which helps to incorporate what it costs us to deal with greenhouse gases, what it costs us to put out these forest fires, to deal with floods, the tundra burning and everything else that is happening, is incorporated in the prices we will pay. It's a market mechanism. It's very business-based, and it has been acknowledged by many governments and the IMF as the most effective way to combat climate change. We have matched that with the Climate Action Incentive, which is a rebate given to all of us, to the normal consumer. So we're trying to change behavior, which is essential, while making sure that the average Canadian is not paying excess taxes. You know, I think this, you know, people have said the Liberals haven't done anything. We've been battling provincial governments, conservative governments, to try and get this price and pollution to stay in place. And we have won now. The effects of this are going to be seen in the years to come, including this year. We have not yet seen the effects in this past year. It has not yet been recorded. But I would say we are doing an amazing job. And you know, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Tony?
Great, thank you, Sandra. Well, first and foremost, I would like to remind everybody that the Liberal government introduced Bill C9, which creates a transparent and accountable legislation that will hold all governments accountable for their commitments to the 2050 commitments as far as greenhouse gas reduction goes. And from a business perspective, it's a risk that exists. If we don't manage the environment effectively, your insurance rates will go up. The ability to produce goods that are being consumed will become more expensive. And I think it's important for all of us to make sure that we provide an environment that the next generation has a healthy opportunity to grow. It's a business opportunity as well. Take a look at the 50% income tax reduction for any business that manufactures goods that would reduce the greenhouse gases. There's tons of research being created and invested in. So there's a ton of opportunity in the environment. We're encouraging that we pursue and become leaders in making sure that we develop a responsible plan and responsible opportunities for business as we go forward into a future that our children will need.
Thank you, Yvonne.
So I just want to start by saying respectfully, the Liberals have had 6 years, and I know there's been a lot of groundwork that needs to happen. So I really hope that in the next year, we're going to see some of that change, because we still have the worst GHG reduction effort in the G7. You know, I think we need to see a cancellation of pipelines. And so that's another thing that the Liberals do, and also stop subsidizing oil and gas, which is all things that the NDP would do. But I think thinking aspirationally, we want to see this as a good fit. Climate change and building good jobs across Canada. So really making that transition to a clean economy, you know, make climate pricing fair so that big polluters that are currently getting those loopholes to not pay taxes, that's still under this government, and we need to see that change. So we're going to spend money on transition to renewable, not on fossil fuel and gas subsidies, and be a real leader on climate change. We have a tremendous opportunity to be a world leader on clean technologies. Canadian businesses are already producing these. We can procure them, we can help them reach the world stage. And the other thing we need to do is establish a national crisis strategy. So we saw that we were completely unprepared for what happened in the last 18 months. We need to be ready for all types of climate and disaster kind of situations. We have to be resilient, and we have to be able to mitigate that. And also create good jobs again, because we're going to retrofit all new buildings by 2025. We'll be getting to net zero. So I think, again, good jobs, cutting inequality, and moving us into the 21st century when it comes to climate change and sustainability are just things that we have been talking about for 20 years now.
Sorry, that's time.
We will do that.
Thank you, Janice.
We do have to consider small business. We have to consider workers. We have to consider Indigenous people whose job it is to look after this country that we have taken from them. So we need to make sure that all people are at the table, and that we're creating strategies that are fair for everyone, you know, that don't leave people behind, that create jobs in the green sector. We want to create a climate change corps, sort of like the Peace Corps, you know, for young people, to give them jobs, to put people at work. A lot of things I do in the community is around the wetlands. My husband is a native plant specialist, and we are always getting rid of the invasive species, putting in better species. We have frogs in the creeks around our house now that we didn't have when we moved in 30 years ago. And we need to educate the public, but you know, you can't get a lot of volunteers doing that. So let's pay for young people who don't have work right now to learn some skills and to get out there and deal with the Phragmites, because it's all related. Like if we don't clean up the oceans, it doesn't matter how lower the emissions go, because the oceans are absorbing the carbon. And once, like in the IPCC report, they have now been able to measure changes in the Gulf Stream. I mean, that has to scare people. The Gulf Stream makes it possible to live in the Northern Hemisphere, right? So we need to stop the rising sea levels that are going to wipe out the east coast of Canada if we're not careful. Sorry, it's a lot of work to do. We have to do it together.
Thank you. Tim? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Sorry, no, just checking.
Yeah, you know, so it gives me, you know, great pleasure to hear, you know, all these round of promises again. But the reality is most of it is political pandering, and we can't do it. We can't afford it. We can't go through another cycle of this. I mean, to listen again with, you know, we haven't improved. And as Leah had mentioned, right up to 2019, we are not anywhere near, we are actually worse than we were from the 5 years prior. We're not going to make our Paris Accord commitments. We're not going to make it with, whether it be the Liberal, we're not going to make it with the NDP. We're certainly not going to make it with the Conservative. We're kidding ourselves. We need to take this as the most dramatic impact for looking at the pictures, looking at the business people, our lives. So there's not another opportunity. So the reality is right now, whoever it is, government now is time to govern. And that does not necessarily mean that we need to increase the taxation. We can manage with the carbon, but we need to lead from the front, which means, and for business owners, there will be value in converting from fossil fuel to renewable energy. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's jobs. It's healthy. We can lead in hydroelectricity like no one else in the world. You'll see a relief, ladies and gentlemen, out there in your insurance costs. If we haven't experienced it in business expense right now, you will. And you're seeing the fires, the implementation, the 815 people. Thank you.
Anthony?
Thank you. As a business owner, I choose to live in Canada. I choose to live here, and I will continue to live here. I do that because it's a beautiful place. And I am here to say that I completely disagree with Tim. Tim's climate alarmism is frankly something that we need to really confront head on. We're talking to each other via laptops right now. Everything that we do is made of oil. Every single thing we do. To kid yourself that nothing that we do is not contributing to some sort of oil manufacturing is insulting to the Canadian public. You are doing this. You are putting the hands and the power into foreign entities like OPEC, where we can have energy independence ourselves. Climate change wraps up into this. I choose to live here as a private citizen. I'm not gonna let it go to shame. I'm not gonna live in a smog environment. As a private citizen, I will invest my own money to make sure that I live in a great place. I will plant trees. I will make sure that those parks are great. We don't need more government intervention telling us what to do with our money, because frankly, squander has been the word of the debate. And absolutely, I don't want to live in a country that is horrifying. So why would we need the government to continuously put forward plans for green energy that have gone to waste under Dalton McGuinty, squandered billions of dollars for wind energy? Done. You drive down Grand Bend, those windmills,
Time.
nothing.
It's a federal election, by the way, so you understand. This is a federal election.
No rebuttals, please. No rebuttals. Serge?
Well, I believe climate change is an ongoing thing with planet Earth, right? And the change is going to happen like our lives. I mean, and we have to adapt to that. We may be contributing to some of the changes, but I think the most important change we're contributing is we're polluting our oceans and our land with lots of garbage, and that garbage should not be there. So it should not be in our oceans. It should not be in our landfill, and we have to give. I mean, and maybe this is part where government should exist and create incentives for businesses to deal with the garbage and to get rid of it, or like to get rid of the sustainable manner of convert to energy. Sweden converts all its garbage and gets garbage from neighboring countries to power its electrical plants. So by burning not fuel but the garbage. As well, I think at most level of governments, I mean, like in all of this, climate change is assault on our Alberta, which feeds the Canada and brings bread to the table, and supports other provinces. And we should be supporting Alberta.
Thank you. Dorian?
Yes, thank you very much. I would venture to say we come right back to one of my favorite words in this particular debate that has been put on so efficiently by the Aurora Chamber. And I thank you for that. The word is balance. And it's interesting because none of us would ever disagree that on every issue, there are two sides to that issue. One of the most important things is to realize there are an equal number of top scientists that say people are panicking unnecessarily. about climate change. Now, listen, I agree it is an issue, but to say it is the most important issue to me is a misnomer. I believe the most important issue for us today is to stand on guard for this country of ours that is under assault at every hand. We only have to look back to that vice president attempt by Al Gore. If Al Gore's book had been true, we'd all be dead today. And bless her heart, we've all heard of Greta Thunberg, and she's given so many deadlines that have not happened. And now, more recently, Ocasio-Cortez, south of the border, the young bartender that got into Congress. The fact of the matter is, we are not panicking. Climate change has existed from time immemorial. Doesn't mean it's not an issue. But what I'd like to do is, I'd like to say, from my perspective, I would say we need a combination of balance between the Paris Accord, the Kyoto Accord, and a protocol with reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much for all of your answers. We'll now move into closing remarks. We'll start with Janice. Each one of you has a minute.
So Janice Hagan, NDP in Aurora, Oak Ridges, and Richmond Hill. I work at Seneca College with students who have language barriers and education issues, and I am a longtime environmentalist. I helped right from the Save the Oak Ridges Moraine back 30 years ago onward. I went back to school and did a master's in environmental studies, and I understand the social costs of what we have to do. I'm also a very positive person. I grew up on Lake Erie, and I saw it when you couldn't touch it, the water, and I see it now after the scientists have worked on it for 20 years. There's a lot of work we can do to clean up our environment. I've seen it in my own neighborhoods. Everybody should get out there and try. It's not, this isn't a death sentence, but it is an extremely important issue, what we're going to do with this planet. So I hope you will elect someone who cares about the environment.
Thank you. Yvonne?
Thank you. My name is Yvonne Kelly, running for the NDP in Newmarket, Aurora. This is my third time doing so. I work as a community partnership developer with the York Region School Board. I'm also the chair of the Social Planning Council of York Region, the Affordable Housing Coalition, and also the Social Planning Network of Ontario. I guess I just want to leave with some thoughts about where we go from here. I mean, we reached our lowest in the last 18 months as we witnessed how cuts to healthcare and privatization of long-term care literally had life and death consequences. We haven't been paying attention to real estate speculation, which has led to exorbitant housing costs and many people being displaced because they can't afford to live here anymore. And those that were really struggling before the pandemic, women, racialized communities, the poor, they are even struggling more now. So I want us to consider if it's time for us to lift each other up to ensure that all Canadians only need one job instead of 2 or 3 precarious ones. We're going to enact climate change before it's too late. So this is my promise to you. We can set a high bar and we can have a better world as possible. So I ask you to vote for me as your MP in Newmarket, Aurora, and I will make that happen.
Thank you. Tim? You're on mute, Tim.
There we go. Sorry. The Green Party certainly supports 3 primary pillars. One, which you've talked quite a bit about, climate, which is encouraging for going forward. And I think it, as opposed to a hybrid of anxiety, actually, I think it's a tremendous opportunity to Canada to actually lead in this element and for our businesses to excel. So I'm really excited about it. But I think a couple other pillars that are important to consider for whoever's elected in the space is certainly in a lot of ways, our society overall, making sure a just society. We haven't talked a lot today about certainly our Indigenous rights, which were all the rage just a couple of weeks ago, and certainly different racial inequality and a lot of homelessness. There's so many things that we need to do on the social side and be conscious of on an ongoing basis.
That's
And then
time,
for sure,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony?
I'm Anthony, Aurora Oak Ridges Richmond Hill candidate for the PPC. And the PPC completely aligns with my values of freedom, less government intervention, entrepreneurship, and equality of opportunity. As you guys have noted, I don't think government's the answer at all. And I think that we've seen an oversight in government intervention this year that is unprecedented in Canadian history. And that needs to be reversed immediately. I think that what the PPC represents is a bright future for Canada, something where we look to each other as strong individuals that can stand on their own without reliance on a government that is constantly in their business, that is constantly saying, you need us. Everyone is strong, so long as they find themselves and empowers themselves to their best of their ability. The PPC will be there to support you, to support your dreams, and to support you in a strong, passionate Canada. Like you see.
Thank you. Serge?
Okay, in my closing remarks, all I want to do is warn everyone the dangers of socialism, the dangers of take it from the rich and give it to the poor. So who decides who is poor, who decides who is rich? So why a person who works 16 hours a day has to give to someone who doesn't work, who gets government assistance? I mean, everyone in a society has to contribute to the society. So there's no people who can decide, no government can decide why someone deserves more and someone deserves less. No, we all have individual rights, and there's no like greater good we have to sacrifice our lives for. Everyone stand on its own.
That's time, Serge.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dorian?
Yes, I think that, you know, I can say this without evasion, equivocation, or mental reservation of any kind. The time has come for us to take our national anthem seriously. It is time for us to stand on guard for Canada. Dorian Baxter is the name, the independent candidate name that I'm asking you to make federal Canadian election history. Send me to Ottawa. I guarantee you my voice will be heard, and so will yours. Keep in mind that it is imperative that Canada remains the true north, strong and free. I will ensure that to be the case. And I want to say this: the Westminster model of parliamentary democracy demands, it says you must not vote for the party. Read up on it. We ascribe to that. We subscribe to that model. It says you vote for the person. On the 20th of this month, please vote Dorian Baxter for Newmarket Aurora, and I'll say thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tony?
Thank you, Sandra. First, let me say it's sad that the Conservative Party thinks that they can take the business community for granted and not bother to show up to this very informative debate. You know, as I've said earlier, elections are about choices, and to me, the choice our community has is clear. We can choose to continue to make progress on the things that we've talked about. We can make sure that our local businesses and the people who work with them are ready to grow and to thrive as we come through this pandemic. We can deal with the threat of climate change. We can deal with the threat of climate change, and we can build an economy and a society that works for everyone. We can finish the fight against the pandemic and go back to the normal lives that we so badly missed. We can do all of these things or not. I'm running in this election because those are the things that I want to do, and because it's the kind of future that I believe in for our community, for our country, and for my grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you. Leah?
Well said, Tony, and I won't repeat that, but of course I agree. I want to thank the Chamber, and I want to thank everyone who made time to come here today to have this conversation, and for those who are listening. These conversations are incredibly important. We have very critical issues that we're dealing with right now, and we have to work together. We have to work across levels of government. And I will commit to working hard for the people of Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill with your governments. I particularly want to thank the NDP candidates here today. You'll notice in our riding, we do not have a green candidate. And Janice, I appreciate you putting your hat in the ring. You're a last minute candidate. But I want to reiterate what I said before. In Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill, you will either have a Liberal member of Parliament or a Conservative member of Parliament. Please, we are very progressive. If you're thinking about making progress and moving forward, vote Liberal in Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill. Thank you. My name is Leah, and I'm asking for your support.
Thank you. All right, that concludes the event this evening. I'd like to thank all the candidates who joined us this evening. Thank you to our event sponsor, the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, and thanks to everyone who attended. Good luck to all the candidates. I wish you all a wonderful evening.